What's up, everyone? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and it's finally happening. I'm doing a full-on, in-depth review of Lorna Shore's new album, I Feel the Everblack Festering Within Me. I always want to say I can feel the Everblack festering within me, and then I say I feel, and then I don't remember which one it is, but y'all know what I'm talking about. It's been about a month since I told you I was going to do this, and let's mute that. It's been about a month since I told y'all I was going to do this, and I almost decided not to do it for a couple of reasons. We'll talk about those reasons in a second. But I decided to hell with it. We're here. Let's do it. It's been a hard time finding a block of time to do this. My son's just going to have to kind of chill at daycare a little extra for me to be able to get this done. But if you're new to the channel, on this channel, I mostly talk about vocal technique, and I teach people how to do vocals, stuff like, safely and efficiently so they don't hurt their voice, and they can follow their metal vocal dreams. But on these, I kind of step back as an instructor and I step in more as a listener. I've been doing metal vocals for myself for like 15, 16 years. I'm in a band called Kardashev on Metal Blade Records. And with my reaction and analysis videos, I really hold my judgment of the song and the music, and I mostly focus on the educational opportunities and trying to find something to love, because it happens all the time that I react to and analyze songs that aren't really for me. And if you know anything about Lorna Shore and me, you'll know that I've always been kind of lukewarm on Lorna Shore. Some of their songs, I'm like floored and I love them. Other songs, I respect them, but it's just a bit of a miss. So today I'm going to be talking about this album, and this is really going to be my opinion on how I feel. Well, that's what a review is. It's an album review of this start to finish. I'm going to listen through every song, and after I'm unpaused, no pausing at all during the music, which normally I pause all the time to talk about vocal technique. No pausing. After each song, I'm just going to give a little bit of commentary on it, 2 to 3 minutes, maybe at the most. And then at the end, I'll give a final review and we'll wrap it up there. Now, if you're interested in knowing why I took so long to do this and a little bit of backstory around why I've been kind of touch and go with Lorna Shore's music, keep listening. If not, you can skip ahead. I'm going to try to remember to put the timestamp in here, but these take a long time to edit, so I may forget. But you can scroll ahead. You're all adults or close to adults. You can, if I forget to put the timestamp, you can scrub. I believe in you. But so, as many of you know, on the channel, I primarily talk about deathcore, because deathcore is where a lot of the vocal acrobatics are. That's kind of the point of the genre, right? And this has kind of come not necessarily as my choice per se, but as a vocal instructor, somebody who teaches people how to do harsh vocalization full time, all day, like 6 days a week. That's where there's a lot of opportunity to talk about metal vocals. Now, for my own personal preferences, deathcore is not the top of my favorite genres, and that's no secret. That's no surprise. I will say I have been getting more into it lately, right? I have been finding more interest in it. And so with Lorna Shore, they really led the charge on what deathcore was, right? For a good chunk of time there. Maybe they still are. And because it was like super, super deathcore, I just found it not really resonating with me sometimes. Now, I want to clarify here that, I've always had a lot of respect for the band, and I've never heard a Lorna Shore song that I thought was bad. I've never heard a Lorna Shore song that I thought like is bad musicianship. Another thing I don't resonate with is these people who don't like deathcore saying it's soulless or, it's like the death of metal. I think that's really overdramatic. I think it, that's quite a stretch. I think a lot of it is great, even if it's not for me. So I kind of avoided doing this for a couple of reasons. The first is, and I think that this kind of painted, I think that this might be why I was a little bit touch and go with Lorna Shore for a while there. And I think, and when I realized this, I realized I needed to step back and wait to do this review so I could do a fair review. And I think the first reason for that is I started this channel during COVID. And during COVID, everybody was home and I could do anything I wanted. It was the golden era. I could put up a video on anything and it was going to get tons of views and tons of interaction. People were going to love it, right? COVID ended. And then people stopped watching anything you put on, and they started really only watching reaction and analysis videos if you're going to talk about their favorite band or somebody controversial. And so I went from being able to do whatever the heck I wanted, which is obviously that's more fun, to having to do songs kind of because you have to, right? Now, I try to draw a hard line. There are some songs that fall into that have to territory that I won't do because I never want to be disingenuous. I never want to be, pretending, right? Because that's not fun to watch and that's not fun to make. It's not fun for you. It's not fun for me. So there are plenty of songs that I won't cover or vocalists that I've kind of stopped covering. But Lorna Shore definitely is and was one of those bands where if they drop something, if you want your channel to be in the algorithm, you must, right? And so I think that, and this isn't the fault of Lorna Shore, this is just the nature of being a content creator. I think after a while, Lorna Shore started sounding more like work to me than music, if that makes sense. I think another reason I kind of started to get touch and go with Lorna Shore is I didn't have a bad experience with them. I've never actually talked to, I think I messaged Will once on Instagram. I've never really spoken with any of them, but I really didn't like the taste, the texture, the color and tone of the discourse around Lorna Shore. It was very zealous, right? It was very zealous. People talked about it for or against, like they were willing to go to war for it. And me, I've been a musician for a long time. I've been doing vocals for a long time, and I have never had such a strong opinion on music that I was like willing to like turn into a keyboard warrior. That's wild to me. And I don't like that feeling. Take a sip of chamomile here. Staying calm. And so I think that, Lorna Shore for me kind of became, I associated Lorna Shore with work and people with bad attitudes. You know what I mean? And it's just really like, if I step back, that's not Lorna Shore's fault. They're just out here trying to write some dope ass music, and people are like, actually, technically, music is dying because I can't do things myself, so I'm mad at people who can. Or people who are like, no, this is the peak of deathcore, and if you don't like Lorna Shore, you're not a real deathcore. Oh my God. I can't do that. I can't be a part of those conversations. Like sometimes people try to like talk to me about cupping the mic, and I'm like, there probably is a right answer out there. I'm sure there's a right answer out there. I just don't have the mental capacity to give a fuck about it. Right. Because ultimately I'm in this metal vocal thing and this coaching literally just to have a good time. That's the whole reason I do metal vocals. Really, if we boil it down, I just want to have a good time. I just want to have some fun. You'll hear me say that in an interview with Ricky Hoover, which at the time of this posting will have probably been yesterday. So all this being said, I almost didn't do this review because I didn't want it to feel like work. And I also didn't want the comment section to happen because there's a chance I'm going to listen to this and not really like it, right? There's a chance I'm going to come away from this and be like, this isn't for me. Now, I'm not worried about people being mean to me about it. I've been on YouTube for a long time. Right. I've heard and seen it all. I still get insults and stuff from people referencing videos from like there will be people who literally like, I swear to God, it's like they go find something I accidentally said wrong, or maybe I totally did believe something incorrectly 5 years ago. And then they'll bring it up and I'm like, oh, God forbid I changed my opinion once I was presented with new facts and data. And there's a whole era of my videos after my son was born. I was barely conscious for 6 months. I'm sure if you watch videos from the end of September to like end of September 2022 to March 2023, sometimes I forget what I reacted to. I bet those videos are fraught with just mistakes because I was sleeping like 3 hours a night, waking up taking care of a kid, right? So I'm not worried about people being mad about me about it, but I just didn't want my comment section to look like Reddit, basically, or Twitter. But I decided, you know what? Let's just do it. So last thing I'll say, and then let's go ahead and get into the review. Last thing I'll say is what I did was I went back and I listened to pretty much all of Lorna Shore up from when Will joined up until now. Not this album, of course. Now, I don't know what my favorite song was, because if you own a business and you are a dad, you know that you're not sitting down and reading lyrics and listening to songs. You listen to music like this. You get 30 seconds. Yeah, bud, what's up? Sure, you can have a snack. Pause. Go get snack. Come back. Unpause. So you're listening to music while you clean the kitchen, while you pick up your kid's toys, while you're teaching your kid how to, wash his hands or put away his own toys, right? So I don't know which song was my favorite because I'm not staring at Spotify while I'm doing things. But I wanted to give a better listen to this. And I feel like I'm in a mental space now to give this a full review, a fair review, a review that's not colored by the fact that I was frustrated. Obviously I'm glad that we got out of that crazy COVID 2019 through like 2021 situation. But, it was a little frustrating when I was like, oh man, I can't just like literally put up anything I want. I've kind of removed myself from the dialogue. And I said to myself, you know what, Mark, you're part of the Final Fantasy fandom and the Star Trek fandom. And those are two very opinionated groups. If you can survive them, you can survive this. So that's the background. If you watched that, now you know. If you didn't, then and here, I'll put the timestamp. Wow, never mind. That won't work because I'll have to edit it. But if you watched that, then hell yeah. If you didn't, then let's go ahead and let's just start with Prison of Flesh, which I've reacted to on the channel, but I'm more than happy to listen to it again. Because if you've seen my review of Prison of Flesh, you already know what score I'm going to give this song. You already know. But let's do it. Let's do it. 7 minutes. Ew, that's a long song. Okay, so if you watched my Prison of Flesh reaction, I really like that song. I think it's pretty good. Now, Call Me Crazy, I feel like the mix is different. What I did was I went and I bought the album, and then I took the waves, and then I kind of built my own review video here. Yeah, that's why for anybody who uses VLC, you recognize this player. The mix sounds different. So even though it's the music video, I'm using for any music video you see here, just so we have something fun to look at, it's the album version of the song. I feel like the mix is a little bit different. I'm not going to speak too much on that though, because I haven't listened to this song really since a couple days after I reviewed it. So overall, I think that song's killer. That song for me has a lot of the same energy that I first kind of like, because for a lot of people, of course I'd heard Lorna Shore before, but To the Hellfire was really where I was like, oh shit, who are these guys? I think that was how it was for all of us, many of us anyway. As is customary, bands kind of move away from that a little bit. I'm not saying they went soft or anything. I'm just saying like, I felt like a lot of the time I was trying to recapture that. And in my first review, like I go nuts, right? Obviously I've heard it before, so it's not as fresh. But I think that sounds really good. There are a couple things about it that I don't like love. I feel like there are some spots where compositionally it's just a little busy for me. I feel like sometimes, and I feel like sometimes there's just so much going on. The guitars are going nuts. Will is going nuts. The drum is going nuts. The bass, everybody's going nuts. And I feel like it's hard for things to feel kind of lined up. Now, sometimes that's okay. I listen to a lot of music that's like just chaos. It's just chaos. Nothing's lined up. Who cares? But that's what that music's trying to do. This isn't necessarily like chaos per se, but there are some spots where I just feel like the food is slightly overseasoned, if that makes sense. But that's a small nitpick that's only in a couple sections. I also kind of feel like even though, and I'm not going to claim the mix is different because I don't know anything about production and it's been a while since I listened to it, but I feel like sometimes Will's technique doesn't cut through as much as I would like it to. Like his mids and lows are just disgusting. We all know that, right? And he throws pitch in there, and like when he, like his really crispy, really like papery TV static thin vocals, they sound awesome in like his one takes, right? He did that one take of Oblivion where he's like in that red room and things with the red lights or anything. And his voice is really forward there. And that like really TV static thin, like vocal, sounds great soloed. Sometimes when all the instruments are going on though, I feel like I have to be like, and I'm only 37, I'm not experiencing hearing loss yet. Right. But I feel like I'll be like, what? There's something in there. But then, he uses it when he feels like I feel the Everblack Festering within me. There, the music is more open and you can really hear it and it's sick. So sometimes the choice of tone he uses is not my favorite. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid song. It's pretty good. I'm going to give that. That's one that you find yourself humming. I'm going to give that a solid 8. I think it's really solid. I think on my first review, if you were to watch my reaction of it, I would give it a 10. I think now, having heard it a couple times and being able to listen to it with less surprise and more analysis, I'd give it a solid 8. I think it's a great song. Regardless of how this album ends up for me, I will definitely be listening to that again. Now, let's check out Oblivion. Oh, sick. Homie shouldn't have eaten those beans. Yeah, I'm going to show this video to my son. He's 3. When the next time we're at the grocery store and he finds an M&M on the floor and he wants to eat it, I'll be like, remember what happened to the guy who ate the beans? That's going to happen to you. I'm kidding. I'm absolutely not showing this to my toddler. Okay, so... interestingly enough, listening to these back to back now, after my Prison of Flesh reaction, which I think was the most recent Lorna Shore that I've done, I probably would have said no song could top Prison of Flesh. But it's tough because I'm not gonna lie. I think riff for riff, Oblivion is more to my taste. That opening riff is awesome. The guitars are nuts. I feel like this song has more parts, more pieces, more moments in it. The only thing is, I feel like it's kind of long. Like when that guitar solo comes in, I'm like, oh shit, we're still going? I mean, hey, I'm not gonna, it's a good song. I love the song. But I'm like, dang, we're 15 minutes in, 2 songs, right? Now, listen, I'm a lover of long songs. If you were to look at some of my most listened to songs ever, they're like north of 10 minutes. But I think sometimes, and this is a personal preference thing, sometimes when you have music that is so maximal, so much all at once, nonstop, it can get a little bit tiring. And one thing I do notice, I don't have any data to back this up, but young fans of deathcore, people who have found deathcore within the last couple of years, they eat this up. Fans who have been listening to deathcore for a long time, they're kind of like, oh, that's a long song. So it's interesting. I think riff for riff, I like this song better than Prison of Flesh, but I think I get a little bit tired at the end of it. Like I feel like this song, when I listen to it, I'll probably listen to the first like half of it, maybe up through like the breakdown, which I love the animal noises. And people are like, oh, every deathcore song has the slow breakdown and animal noises. And I'm like, yeah, it does. And I like it. Okay. Sometimes it gets to be overdone, but so far I love them both here. But I think I would probably listen up till that part and then skip the rest of the track, right? That's just me. So I kind of have to give this, that's tough, because the vast majority of the track I really like, but then it kind of leaves me with like a taste in my mouth where I'm like, I've had enough of that. So I'm gonna give that a 7.5. 7.5 seems, well, no, that's still in the great territory. All right, that's still a great territory. So I'm gonna give it 7.5. I think it's overall really good. I will say, again, I'm not claiming the production is different because it's been a long time since I listened, but when I first reacted to Oblivion, I remember being like, I feel like I can't hear Will as well as I would like. I feel like I hear him a lot better now. Maybe I'm just, maybe it's a second listen. Maybe I'm less tired, right? But I feel like there was a lot of, and in this song, there were tons of moments where he's using that thin TV static scream, but in moments where it's actually going to shine. So I also think vocally, it's a little bit more smart too. I'm keeping it at 7.5. I might go back and move it to an 8, but I'm keeping it at 7.5. Let's keep going. In Darkness. They got a cool logo though. That's a sick logo with the moon and the forest. Awesome. Okay, so there was a weird thing that showed up. Let me pause and see if I can. It said audio delay. Yeah, audio delay. What's this? Audio delay. Like, what is this? Audio delay. I don't want an audio delay. It didn't sound any different, so it's not gonna change how I view the song. But I don't whatever that is, I don't want it. So here's the thing. That song had some sick moments. There was I think one thing that's interesting about Lorna Shore is they have, I think people throw around the term traditional song structure very loosely, very freely. But they have something that certainly feels more like traditional song structure, right? And I know that in like the deathcore world, which is a huge world, I mean, deathcore is big now. The deathcore is not one thing, but that can be a point of criticism. Some people are like, no choruses, and some people are like, yes, choruses, and then somebody else is like, both of you calm down. But it definitely, it's you can feel each section moving. And what I think this song did really well is it moved between them, especially in the wide open ambient moments. I felt a lot of Fallujah in this song. If you don't know, I love Fallujah. I think Sapphire is probably one of the best metal songs ever written in the history of metal, right? Best being, I just like it a lot. And there were moments where he wasn't doing a solo, but he was doing like these leads behind these really bendy, and obviously that reminds me a lot of. So I loved it. Yet again, though, I had a moment, and I'm going to put a caption in the bottom, but that's why I was like, this is where I'm kind of ready for the song to be done, right? Like, one thing that I will never hold against a song is the fact that I don't personally like guitar solos, because that is purely a point of preference. There's like that guitar solo. It did do some pretty cool things. I don't remember the melody, but it had I think it had like a ba-da-da-da, and that's a really cool melody. Da-da-da-da. That's a beautiful melody. And then it kind of went in line with like I think it was the toms, it was the kicks probably. So the guitar solo was definitely doing a lot of good stuff, a lot of cool stuff. I just don't really love guitar solos most of the time, so I'm not going to dock any points for that. But I will say the guitar solo into the open spot, into the key change, into another change, I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm ready, guys. This is beautiful, and I love it. It's like, when you go to like a bagel shop, right? And you're like, hey, can I get some cream cheese? And they just are there, and you're like, okay, whoa, all right, that is a lot of cream cheese. And they're like, I thought you liked cream cheese, and you're like, I do, but woof. That's kind of how I felt around that moment where we had that second change after what I think was a key change. It was a key change. I just kind of was like, okay, I'm ready. So I think right now, so that song, like, it had some beautiful moments, but I felt myself getting kind of a little fatigued, right? A little ear fatigued, right? And that again can be also, I hate to say it, but an age thing, right? When you've heard a lot of metal, it's tougher. Sometimes you find that you're looking for different things. So for me, there are a lot of good moments of that song. If that song was a little shorter, a little bit more concise, probably would give it an 8 or an 8.5. But I kind of can't see myself going back and spinning that one a lot. Even though there's a lot of really good individual elements in it. A lot of great stuff with panning. One thing I will say before I move on is that vocals Will seemed to be a little bit more reserved, which is kind of a funny thing to say about deathcore vocals, but he wasn't doing as much like stuff. He definitely was still doing a lot of like modulation, a lot of changes of like, but it wasn't like nonstop in your face all the time. We didn't have a big animal noise breakdown, which makes sense with how open and sort of celestial that song was. So let's go ahead and let's keep going. I would give in Darkness a solid 7. I'd give it a solid 7. Here we go. Unbreakable. Oh, Glenwood is a good one. Glenwood is a good one. All right, so I don't love that song. I'm pretty sure I was gonna look it up because I'm pretty sure I reacted to the one take. He did a vocal one take. I was gonna look it up and I was like, Mark, just listen to the song. Don't get distracted. I'm a very ADHD guy, so I got to rein myself in. But for me, that's actually kind of an indicator for when something's losing me, when I don't realize I'm getting distracted, and then I am, and then I pull myself back in, right? So I want to point out a couple things. I'm pretty sure I did a vocal analysis to that, but like, that's clearly a big, anthemic, huge song. And man, that is motivating. But I kind of like the first time because this time I'm just listening as a music lover. Like, I'm just listening as a music lover and a musician, not somebody who's trying to like pull an analysis out of it and teach you something. Because that's most of what I do. But, you know, like that first chorus, you're like, dang, yeah, we are unbreakable. Yeah, hell yeah, we're unbreakable. And then again, you're like, yeah, we're unbreakable. And then again, you're like, I'm pretty sure we're unbreakable. And then at the end, we are unbreakable. I felt like I kind of got it. You know what I mean? And it's always a tough thing to say because, like, man, all the things they were doing were sick. Like, even, again, I'm not a big guitar solo guy, but like, even I can't help but be impressed. Like, the accuracy, the precision, the speed, guy's nuts. But at the same time, like, I don't feel like that song for me would have a lot of staying power. And that's kind of, at this point in my life, what I'm really interested in music that is gonna like stay with me for long periods of time. Like, I can guarantee you, Prison of Flesh, I'm gonna be listening to that every once in a while for a while. This one, I don't think I would listen to it again, because for me, you know what, I'll tell you this. A lot of people they refuse to admit that deathcore is a genre that can carry emotion. I think it can, clearly. This next song is going to tell you all about it, right? But at the same time, I feel like that one was almost laying it on a little thick. It was like, listen to this motivating chorus. And you're like, yeah. And they're like, no, really listen to it. And you're like, I did. And they're like, listen to the motivating chorus. And you're like, I listened to it already. But again, at the same time, I don't think that it's like a bad song. I would tell you in these reviews, I would tell you if there was a song that I think was like legitimately poor music, although I think that's really rare. So Unbreakable, my own personal feelings about it, I think musicianship wise, it's a very high score. I think for a lot of people, it's going to land with them. People who like really like, they need a lot of like sort of pep talk music throughout their day, where they're like, oh yeah, I can face the day. I can overcome my demons, this sort of thing. I think for a lot of those people, that song is going to be a 9. I think for me, I'm sorry. Call me what you want in the comments. I'm going to give that a 6 because it's great musicianship. It's a lot of amazing technique. It just kind of lost me. But Glenwood's a great song, so let's listen to Glenwood. love that vocal break at the end of the scream. I love the vocal break at the end of the scream.
We can't go back to how we used to be. We can't go back. It'll never be the same for me. 'Cause things are different now. It's not the same. All these empty rooms. Now all we bring is hell turns to peace. We're slowly taking my time. Rewind. Where did it go? Where did it leave? You tied me down and I ran away. You were the tree from which I grew. I was the bitch you never knew. Take me home. This pain is all I see your face in a broken home. The forest lies within the trees. Where did it go? Where did it go? Are we too far gone from where we began? All the time we lost, the years we spent running away, we hide. Like yes, we could say our pride got in the way. We've been lost in the wrong moment. Take me home. This pain is all I know. I see your face in a broken home. Before the sea, the forest lies within the trees. Where did it go? Where did it go?
So, well, let me just let it play out. So a couple of things here. I think that back to back Unbreakable and Glenwood at this point of the album, very, very smart, right? Because we've got Prison of Flesh, Oblivion, and In Darkness, crazy. And then we've got, this is kind of funny to say, but if you for fans of deathcore, you will know what I'm talking about. The album starts to slow down. Slow down. You know what I mean? It opens up, maybe is a better way to say it. The album starts to open up. And I think, call me crazy, but I think Glenwood is Unbreakable done a little bit better. Because with Glenwood, you know, a lot of the things that I said about Unbreakable are true, but they, for me personally, they hit a little bit better. And I think there are a couple reasons for this. So with Glenwood, there are clearly some things where it's like, hey, here's this emotional moment. We want you to look at it a lot. But I think that there are things that are done that make it a little bit more cohesive. For example, Will's vocal technique. He does a lot of vocal breaks, right? He does a lot of off of his screams. And in my reaction analysis to this song, I talk about how you can do that. It's not that tricky to do once you get it. And so there's a lot more pitch in his screams. Now, I don't know if that's because so many screams have a fundamental pitch to them. Even if, I do something like, if you listen to that raw in like Reaper or whatever DAW you use, you can usually hear like a tiny little bit of pitch in there. We talk about being as pitchless as possible. It's very hard to have a scream. Okay, well, I don't know if it's hard, but it's very common for there to be a little bit of pitch in your scream. So I don't know if it's just because of the production and the song is more open in a lot of spots and we're hearing it. But in any case, whether it was a conscious choice or not, Will is so surgical. I think it was I don't think I think everything he does is probably some sort of conscious choice. But there's a lot of tone and pitch and vocal break and cry in the vocals to make the emotionality really hit home, right? There are also some spots again where I start to get like a little fatigued. Like the song, it kind of stops and opens and goes into utter silence, and then we get the guitar solo, right? Now, this is just my personal take. Again, the song felt a little long, but also, the whole, if I'm remembering the lyrics and the content of this song correctly, the whole thing of the song is like, there's not quite a resolution yet. There's not quite a resolution yet. A lot of these things are still left unsaid. And so I think ending the song when it opened up with no resolution would have been like really, really cool. Really cool. And also, made the song maybe a little bit, I don't know, a little bit, again, more concise. Again, I'm not against long songs. But and of course I've heard the song, so I knew it was coming next. But once that guitar solo came in, I was like, yeah, a long song. So I would give this one, I'd throw, I think there are some really creative choices being done here. I think that there's a lot of, like you can really tell that the intention of this song was at the forefront when they were writing it. And I got mad respect for that. I still experienced some fatigue at the end. I still was kind of ready for the song to be over once we got to the end. Although it would be interesting if there was some way to do a study of people who love Lorna Shore as like their top band and the members of Lorna Shore themselves and the kind of movies they like. Are they watching a lot of Interstellar? These movies with these big, like, big symphonic moments? Because if you're somebody who loves those big symphonic moments, I can see why you would like an album where they're just giving that to you every 10 seconds. Just here's a big moment. Here's a big moment. Here's a big moment. Here's a big moment. Have all the big moments. Well, then there you go. It is for you, right? I'm going to give that. You know what? I'm going to give that a 7.5. I'm going to give that a 7.5 because they're doing what they're doing well. And with that, I got to pause because I really got to pee. All right. My apologies. That break was a little longer than anticipated. Had to readjust some things, brushed my hair, did some stuff. So let's go ahead. Let's light another stick of incense here. Get the vibes going. And let's check out Lionheart. I think we're halfway through. How many? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So yeah, just about halfway through. Just passing the halfway point. So let's check it out. Let's just go right into it. Lionheart, Lorna Shore. Here we go. knew it. I knew it. Huh. Yeah. Yeah. So a couple quick thoughts about that song. I think that is the most compositionally interesting one so far. And part of it is because when you're putting together an album, for anybody out there who has not written an album, like maybe written singles or never written anything, when you're putting together an album, one thing that can make that album really strong is the order in which you place the tracks. And there was something really cool here that again, this is a first time listen, so I might be getting these melodies wrong, but a few songs ago, there was this guitar solo that went, right? And then there were some choir moments in this song where the choir was going, do, 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 do. And then at the end, we had some of the strings going, boo, do, 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 right? The same little melody coming in and out. And so that gives us some cohesion, right? We're about halfway through the album. And if you're listening intently, you're like, okay, we're starting to stitch some things together here. Now, maybe I'm misremembering that guitar solo melody and I'm full of crap right now. My apologies. But I think it was pretty much the same melody, just worked into different spaces. And that's a really nice way to make things make sense, right? A really good example is like, let's say you're cooking like a big meal for your friends and family, right? Not just like a normal, like, hey, we got 30 minutes for dinner and then we got to get out the door sort of situation or get this kid to bed sort of situation. Like, hey, we're creating like a dining experience, right? One thing that you can do is carry like one key ingredient through the meal, right? So like lemon, right? You can have an appetizer like calamari with a spritz of lemon, then maybe like, a little bit of like lemongrass sauce on your entree, and then maybe, you don't want to go too lemon forward, right? But maybe like a berry pie with like a little bit of lemon in the filling, right? Just to brighten it up. You're not thinking the entire time, man, this guy loves lemon. But the person eating the meal is getting something that's pulling from one dish to another. And that's kind of what I feel like Lionheart is doing here. And for that reason, I think it's pretty solid. Another thing I really like as well is that they're like adding symphonic and choral elements to deathcore is nothing new at this point. But a lot of times they make the symphonic stuff dark, like scary, like a lot of this was very uplifting, right? And now the band I'm in, Kardashev, nothing like this. But if you listen to Kardashev, you know that we are big fans of mixing metal and uplifting sounds together, like putting those like happy and dark elements together side by side. So this song kind of vibed with me in that respect as well. I kind of again got that feeling of where I was like, is this going too long? But then it kind of did like this, sounded like a snare build up, and then it didn't go too much longer after that. That I thought was pretty concise. So I would rate this song a bit higher. I think that part of the reason I like it so much is its positioning in the album. This is a perfect spot for this song to exist because we started really heavy, then opened up, got a little softer, and now we are bringing the energy back into the album, but not going quite as dark, right? So we're getting a gradient. This album it's not proving to be just the same thing start to finish, which I think is cool. Because if you're going to do an album, I think this album has a runtime of over an hour. That can be detrimental. Like if tracks 1 through 3 are amazing, but by the time you get to track 10 or 11, it's the same vibe. It can be very tiring. So yeah, Lionheart, really enjoyed it. More of a technical listen than a like vibey fist throwing listen. But sometimes I gravitate more towards music that causes me to like lean in and pay attention. That's why Mustaden by Viltjarta is one of my favorite metal albums ever, because you gotta kind of listen to it like this. You kind of thinky. It's a thinking album. Let's keep going. I'm interested to see where we go from here. Next is Death. I have not heard. I don't think I've heard any of these. Death Can Take Me, War Machine, A Nameless Hymn, Forevermore. I don't think any of those I've listened to. So I think the rest of this is legit first time listen. Here we go. Now we're dark again. Now we're dark again. This is a pivotal moment. What happens next? It's going to be very important. Oh, that was a nice reverb tail. That was a nice reverb tail. Okay, so I have a lot to say about that song, but again, I want to keep it the spots concise. I think that was another really compositionally fascinating song because there were some things that were really cool. In their opening orchestration, it sounded like there was some tremolo pick guitar that was kind of like in with the orchestra. At first, I was like, is that just more like samples or pads or whatever? Again, I'm just a vocalist and a vocal coach, right? So sometimes when it comes to production and stuff, I use the wrong terms. Please feel free to correct me because I'm always interested. That's something I need to get better at because, as many of you know, our vocalist who used to do all the recording, he lives in Germany now. So I got to figure out how to do it myself. But this tremolo pick guitar in with it was really fascinating. And also, I think one of the coolest things they did in this song was they would slow down the actual guitars without losing momentum in the track. And that's really hard to do. Well, I mean, unless you do it professionally like these guys, right? But, you know, there would be moments where it would go, grr, 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 but the song didn't feel like it had slowed down. I didn't feel, a lot of times, and this is a really big thing in deathcore, and sometimes it's a stylistic choice, but sometimes I think it's the song not working very well how the artists intended it to. When they slow the song down, I kind of feel like I'm in the car with somebody who's like a little heavy on the brakes. You're like, right? I didn't feel like that at all. The song slowed down, but it was a nice, I was really eased into the next part. Which is pretty solid. And it sounded also like there was some variation on those chugs, not necessarily the pattern, but maybe, I wish I knew more about guitar, but maybe it was more open. Like maybe at first it was more palm muted and then a little less. Maybe it was a change of the pickups. I'm not sure. Higher up on the neck, probably not higher up on the neck. That wouldn't make sense. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying, right? And so there were a lot of really smart choices that made the song make sense for everything that was going on. I feel like this song was just as busy as some of the beginning tracks, but I could hear everything cohesively. You know, Will would do a scream and we'd hear the panning on either side. And we also had some screams where it sounded like he was doing, like carrying like a little bit of like a fundamental pitch underneath it that the symphony was matching, the orchestra was matching, which is pretty cool. And that's, you know, you can have screams that have like sort of you can have like a full on, this is a thing to talk, this is a whole nother video. But you can have screams that have pitch in them, and then you can have screams that have like kind of what we could call like the illusion of the pitch of a pitch in it. So like, you know, like a right. You can kind of like augment, and if you put strings behind it or guitar behind it, it can make it feel like you're singing in a scream. It's a really cool effect that I thought was really well done. Again, one thing that I wouldn't dock the album for this. Like I wouldn't, if I was to end up not liking this album, I wouldn't put this as a reason why like the songs were bad, but just the open spot into the guitar solo, that's just not for me. And that's totally fine. There's a big difference between a song being bad and a song not being for you. One of my best examples of this, I've used this before, so if you've heard this already, I apologize, is apple pie. I do not like it. Serve me a piece of apple pie in your home and I'll eat it without complaint because I appreciate the work you put into it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. I can eat apple pie and I can tell that the crust is perfect, that the apples are the perfect balance between crispy and soft, the cinnamon, the sugar, the flaky crust, and I am not going to want to eat another bite of it at any point because it's just not for me. And that composition in music is really not for me. And that's all there is to it. The solos are phenomenal. The opening, the open space leading into the solo, the ambience is dynamic. It's just not for me. So that's that. But I think everything else in the song was really interesting. I would give this one another 8, despite the fact that not for me section exists. There was so much that was drawing me in. And I think as somebody, I hate to sound old because I'm not old, but I'm starting to say things that sound like an old person. But as somebody who's listened to metal for a long time and been involved, if a song can, like, I like a song that's fun, but if a song can make me go, hey, wait a minute, that to me, that feels like a new experience. And at this point in my life, that's really kind of what I'm looking for. So yeah, I think that the album's pulling back up. Let's hear War Machine. A lot of people, they were like, dude, you got to listen to War Machine. So let's see if it lives up to the hype. All right. Now that is a fascinating song. What an outlier. So you probably saw it because I was dragging the window all over the place. With this, I was like, I gotta know. So the song opens and I'm like, this doesn't sound like part of the album, really. It sounds very different. So I wanted to look at the lyrics. Now, normally I don't read lyrics first. And the reason for that is I think that the lyrics are part of an album and they should be treated as part of the album. But I often like to just take the album in first as it is. Especially because I think that, part of the fun of harsh vocalization, especially in deathcore, is just enjoying the sound first. But I was like, I gotta read these lyrics along with the song because I don't really understand where it fits. Because like Glenwood, we've got something that's very like heartfelt, a very like personal story. And this reading the lyrics, it kind of, obviously I don't know exactly what's going on here, but it seems like, we're talking about being wronged in the past and, wanting to take revenge or enact justice. And so it does make sense where it fits. I actually really like this song. I do have some things about it I don't like, I'll talk about briefly, but so I even typed it in halfway through because I was like, I can't be the only one that thinks this. And sure enough, I was like, Metallica? Now, here's the thing. I really like Metallica a lot. And I think part of that is because I grew up on it, maybe. But like the beginning is very like Master of Puppets. But I don't think it's in like, to me, this sounds like maybe some members of the band are big Metallica fans. And so they wanted to like, this feels like a respectful nod. I'm not saying that at all. To me, this doesn't sound like ripping off Metallica. There are some bands where you're like, that's just an Opeth song. Like you literally just played the beginning of an Opeth song. That's not what I'm hearing here. I'm hearing a lot of heavy influence, and I'm hearing a lot of heavy influence that they wanted you to be aware of, but I don't hear them like ripping anything off. I actually think it's really cool. This song had like a bit of a thrashy vibe, which is hard to do. I'm gonna sound how I sound, but sometimes when bands try to bring back older genres, it can feel very, I hate this word, but it's appropriate, derivative. And to me, like a really good example is like one band that fuses genres, I think really well, is Mental Cruelty with black metal. And I think the reason they do it well is because some of the members of the band really love black metal. And so they're trying to be inspired by it versus saying like, we don't listen to black metal, but let's insert black metal sounding stuff into it, which like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not against it, but you can generally hear the difference. I think, and this is a guess, again, I could totally be wrong, but I think that these guys, some of them, probably the guitarist, they're big Metallica fans, or at least were big Metallica fans. And actually, as I look at this Reddit thread, I think I'm seeing that right there. It looks like that might be the case. I think it sounds cool. I also really like that the song carried. It wasn't predictable, but like at one point there's like that gunshot and that tells you that something's coming in. So it's like a cool, like it's like a breakdown call out, right? A breakdown call out doesn't mean the song's predictable. It gets everybody hyped, right? What the fuck is up, Denny's? Right? It's not really a breakdown call out, but you understand what I'm saying. So I really like this song a lot. This might be, it was dynamic without chaos. I really like that song. I will say, another reason I don't talk about lyrics very much is because people are often writing from the heart. And I don't want to be like critical of people writing from the heart. But I will say that lyrically, this kind of didn't do it for me very much. There's a lot of like, shit out of luck. Now your life is fucked. I'm life and death. And I think that there were some opportunities like, he says, my turn to bite, my turn to bite, my turn to bite. I'm the hand that feeds. And like that's applicable, I am sure. And when we're writing lyrics, we don't always have to be, sometimes it's good to write lyrics that aren't obscured. Like, I'm not going to pretend I'm the perfect lyricist. Sometimes with my lyrics, I have trouble not being too obscure. I get way too lost in metaphor and simile sometimes. And I think that sometimes that's something that I, as a lyricist, need to work on. But I think if you're going to repeat a line that is something I don't want to say cliche, but it's a line, bite the hand that feeds. And we're flipping that. We've heard it a lot. Maybe do something vocally to make it like the word bite, right? Maybe on the last one, he could have done it a little different, like a bite, like bit into the lyric a little bit. But overall, it didn't ruin the song for me in any way. And it's just those little moments. I think the lyrics are fine. It's just those little moments where I'm like, I don't know, kind of heard that said a lot. But I would give that an 8, actually. I really dug that song. I feel like this song, as I go back and listen to it, I might even bump up to an 8.5. So yeah, War Machine was cool. Very much an outlier on the album. Sometimes that can be a problem, but coming up to the end of the album, it's kind of nice to have something that feels a little different. As we go, I'm appreciating the way that the album is structured. Let's keep going. A Nameless Hymn. But I will say before we start this one, I think A Nameless Hymn is a really cool song title. I think it's a really cool song title because, well, I'll just like think about it. Like A Nameless Hymn. What's this about? Who's it written to? What does it mean? How old is it? It brings about a lot of mystery. So I think A Nameless Hymn probably is the coolest track title on the album. Like when I was reading through I was like, ooh, I want to know what this song sounds like. That's mysterious. So Nameless Hymn, great song title. Interesting. Very interesting track. Okay. So at the beginning, I was like, Behemoth, is that you? It's interesting. I was like, I really like black metal. Next song. We have, it really reminds me of Fire in the Void. You know, that's a very, like, if you're not a black metal person, black metal has like eras, right? There's like first wave, second wave, all these things, right? And I get them confused all the time. But there's a sound that's like, there's a sound that's very associated with black metal, and it's that, especially like your Dark Funerals, your Belphegors, your Behemoths, your Gorgoroths, right? Where it'll be like a heavy chord and then a chimey open, dong, gam, dong, gam. Like again, you can listen to a Fire in the Void. Very, very similar, right? I will say the black metal elements here, and this might be because I've just listened to a lot of black metal, felt a little bit more like they were pulling, like they were like, hey, let's take some black metal sounds and insert it in here. But it was really not a lot, right? I think if they had like really followed that like Behemoth sound, maybe it would have been too much. But here it was like a good attention grabber. So I kind of liked it. Also, a lot of the monster noises, he did this really low, like punched in, I'm not even gonna attempt it, sound that was like very, very interesting. There was a lot of really cool movement in this sound. One thing I really liked, I don't remember the lyrics, I'm just gonna fucking BS something right here. You know, he's got this, this very stone, this guy, he's got this voice going right here, and I love that tone. Anybody who watches this channel at all knows that Travis Ryan is one of my favorite vocalists of all time. I hesitate on favorite because I'm like, oftentimes he is my favorite, but I've got like a top 4 that kind of rotates. It's like Travis Ryan, Johnny Davey, Alex Tyne, and then there's an open spot, which is very often Cheney Crab from Entheos. And if we're talking about just like nasty, sludgy vocalists, right? And so that Travis Ryan sound is very cool. Might be a little too Travis Ryan. might be a little too close. But obviously I'm gonna dig the tone. But this song was full of sounds that I really like. There was just this, again, it was a longer track, but not one that I felt fatigued or tired by. I really like the composition. I really like the black metal elements. I really like the aggressive elements. Yeah, that was just an overall, that's one I'm going to be listening to again. Man, that's tough. I think from just a pure enjoyment factor, I want to give it a 9. Be honest with you. It just had a lot of what I like. It had a lot of like, I feel like that song is just a bunch of the stuff I like. You know what I mean? Put together. So, all right. So earlier in the video, I said, you know, I got to go get my kid eventually. It's that time. I know I have one more song to do, and I know I have to do my wrap up thoughts. And some people might not like that the review is broken up because that breaks up the experience. But homie, for anybody who's got kids and you run a business, you know that this is how you listen to albums, interrupted. So it'll all be one video, but we're going to cut here. I'm going to go take care of that. We'll come back. Probably gonna have to be a different day. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So Forevermore and the wrap up thoughts coming to you from your perspective in like 2 milliseconds. All right, and we are back. Thank you for your patience. I already know that some people are, like I said, not gonna love that this review is done in parts, but like that's just kind of the reality of my life. So let's keep going, right? But I will say one thing to bear in mind is that, you know, I found myself kind of thinking about and sort of bobbing my head to some of these sounds. A lot of my eights, you know, I'm driving in the car and I'm like, you know, like drumming on the steering wheel and things like this. So, you know, obviously, okay, not enough time has gone by to like prove that, yeah, these have staying power. But you know, it is enough to, sorry, I do self-monitor. I got to hear myself. I got to self-monitor. The only way I can do this is if I can hear myself. But you know, there are some songs that certainly have some catchiness to them. And to that, I say hell yeah. But let's just do a nameless hymn, and then I'll do all my thoughts at the end. So not a nameless hymn. Forevermore. Let's do it. Here we go. Whoa. That's interesting. A little bit of really cool dissonance on the end of the on that reverb there. That's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. Okay. All right. So that is I feel the Everblack festering within me. And then let's talk about Forevermore. So there are a lot of things again about this song that I actually really liked. I loved like that opening riff. I really loved. Maybe my thing with guitar solos is I just prefer a certain type of guitar solo, because I mentioned earlier that I really like Fallujah. I think Fallujah is a great band. Their whole discography, start to finish, I think it's phenomenal. Obviously, there's some songs I like better than others, but like a lot of what Fallujah does when they play is they get really bendy, really like wow, 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 and I love that. And it's kind of hard to do, I would imagine, because again, this is just me talking about like you can bend that like by bending the string, but you also can have like that whammy bar, I think it's called, right? And when you're doing all that bending, it's really hard to bend too far or not enough, and so your note is flat or sharp, right? Or you're just on a completely wrong note. So maybe that's the thing. I thought a lot of the orchestral movements, and I think one thing that's very fortunate with how heavy this album is on these big cinematic, orchestral, symphonic. I'm using those two terms interchangeably because I'm sure there's a difference. Thank goodness they're using samples that, at least to my ear, sound or pads or samples or their VSTs. Thank goodness they sound very high quality, because like I have heard bands where a song would be otherwise phenomenal, but the orchestra pack or whatever that they're using sounds so low quality that you're like, oh man, this sounds like Dragon Quest or RuneScape over deathcore, which by the way, RuneScape is dope. I haven't played in a long time, and respect for Dragon Quest. I'm just saying those sounds don't mesh right with this. So I think there are a lot of elements here that I think are very cool. I do think that a lot of Will's vocal technique here was smart. One thing that, because I tried not to really, I haven't read any other reviews of this album. I haven't really been involved in the dialogue because I wanted to come into this as uninfluenced as possible. But obviously you do hear some things when you're plugged into music, and it's your whole job. A lot of people said that this album feels like the same thing all the way through. Hard disagree. I think that there's a very clear and intentional structure to this album, right? There's no way that this album is the same thing start to finish. And I also heard criticism that Will is just doing, people would say, I heard some people say like, oh, he's just doing Will Ramos stuff the whole time. I mean, yes, in the fact that he's utilizing his voice, but no, because some songs he's heavy on the snarl, heavy on the disgusting sounds. But on here in Forevermore, this song is much more open. And so what we didn't hear very much of are those thin, staticky, like hissy vocals. It was a lot more open. He did a lot of like opening on the side of his mouth, like right. And I think that really lent well to the song. I think yet again, I was really into the song, and then it just kind of kept going. And I found myself wondering, like, okay, how much more are we going to do? Right. Because we have the song slows down, and then it picks up, and then it slows down, and then it picks up, and then it slows down, and it picks up. And like each time it does that, it's beautiful. But after a while, I'm like, okay, and then at one point we have the chimey like piano, I think it was, and then the waves, and then the cello, and then it fades out. And I'm like, so I think that this, for me, Forevermore is tough. Because yet again, individual elements, individual moments, I really enjoyed. I thought were quite good. Like you saw me vibing out to certain parts of the song. So, I'm not going to pretend like the song is mid. Like that's like my son, he's 3, and sometimes he'll take a bite of something and he's like, you can just tell that he loves it. And I'll be like, do you like that? And he'll be like, no. And I'll be like, you little liar. I don't tell him that. I don't call my son a liar, not to his face anyway. So, it'd be disingenuous for me to give it like a 6 or a 7, but I feel like, a song, like, I feel like if I were to go back to listen to that song, I would be like, Am I down for that kind of investment? So I think I think an 8 might be a little too high. Mm. Mm. Well, let's give it a 7.8. Let's give it a 7.8 because it's not quite an 8 for me because I felt a little bit of that fatigue at the end. So let's wrap it up here, right? Let's talk about again, these are my thoughts about this album. I think that this album is actually really well put together. I think that this album is built in such a way that if anybody says it's just nonstop, the same thing over and over, like they're kind of trying to hear it wrong. I think a lot of times when I meet people who like really hate deathcore, they've made it such a degree of their identity that they're almost trying their hardest to it's more important that they stay in that identity of a deathcore hater than they actually give honest feedback about something. And so I think if you hear somebody who says the album was the same thing all the way through, they didn't listen to it, or they're just trying not to hear it properly, because there's a lot of thoughtful process here. If we look at the track list, it goes from heavy and insane to kind of slowed down and opened up. Then it picks up the momentum again without sounding super dark. Then it gets crazy, and then it resolves in this big celestial, heavenly, open section. Right? Amazing. Phenomenal. Really well crafted. I also think that the musicianship is top tier. Like there's nothing I heard that, which is no surprise. There's nothing I heard there where I was like, oh, I don't think that's very good, or oh, that doesn't gel. I do think sometimes, now this might just be me on my age, this might just be my experience with being involved in music. There are sometimes so many maximal elements. I just kind of feel like we could have peeled a couple things away. Peel one thing away, peel two things away. You guys are all such good musicians. Let me kind of hear what you're doing a little bit better, if that makes sense. And then I also think, I think that this is now where we get into like not for me territory. If you love big celestial, huge moments, if you love being thrown into the stars and looking down on the heavens, nonstop, this is the album for you. You're going to love it. Now, this album's been out, I think, over a month already, so nobody's looking for suggestions. So you've heard it or you haven't. But for me, I think it's a little, for me personally, it's a lot of really great stuff, too much. I feel like a lot of the songs kind of made their point in a beautifully wonderful, heavy, artistic way, but then kind of kept going. And I was like, okay, yep, we're pausing and then an orchestral crescendo. I got it. We're pausing and then an orchestral crescendo. Hell yeah. Key change. Nice. And so for me, I kind of am leaving this, especially since I had some time to chew on what I listened to. I kind of feel like this is an album that's really heavily focused on moments, and those moments maybe were a little too copious in amount. Like it's like they like I said earlier in the review, they were like, see how beautiful and emotional this is, and I was like, oh, absolutely. See, look at it. And I'm like, guys, I'm looking at it. I see how beautiful and emotional this is. Yeah, but do you see it now? And I'm like, guys, I see it. See how beautiful and emotional this is. But again, I think that comes down to a musical preference, right? Because again, like there are a lot of styles that are just a lot hyperpop, right? There's a lot going on there. And if you like that sort of thing, that's going to be for you. If you don't, you're going to stay away from it. So for me on a personal level, this album gets a 7.7. It's solid. There's a lot to love on this album. There are a lot of things that I found myself very impressed by. So for me, kind of as many of you may have expected, I think this is a great album. I think this is a really good album. I think for a lot of people who are super into death, especially, oh my God, can you imagine if you were a new metal fan? Can you imagine? Imagine here if you're 18 or 19 and you're just now getting into deathcore, and you listen to this on the bus to school. You listen to this on your bike when you're riding around. Oh, damn. Blow your mind. blow your mind. So is it a bad album? No. Is it an album that I think tries to do a little bit too much? Sometimes. Is it an album for me? In many ways, yes, but I would say I don't think I'm 100% the type of person they're writing music for, but I appreciate it. I think it's phenomenal. I think if you love the album, you should absolutely buy it, buy some merch, support these guys, show them a bunch of love. And I'm glad I listened to it. You know, I'm glad that I have stepped away from kind of associating Lorna Shore with just like work and angry comments and given this some time to, because I think this was a fun experience. So with that being said, that's how I feel about Lorna Shore's new album. I feel the Everblack Festering within me. Good job to these guys. Absolutely keep doing what you love. I'll keep enjoying the moments that I love and admiring the parts that maybe don't quite fit what I like. But that's all I got. As I always say, many thanks, much love. I'm out.